I suppose I should start my story with a little introduction and some background. Well, my name is Robert Johnson and my wife, Debbie, and I have been married now for 15 years. We met in college, both of us attending Texas A&M. I was going for my BS degree in Computer Information Systems, while she was getting her bachelor's degree in nursing. Actually, we met at a spring break party in Galveston. Neither of us had the money to take the typical Florida or Mexico trips. We were considered by all our friends to be the perfect couple, and I think a few of them were even a little bit jealous how we got so close so quickly. Debbie is a knockout, standing 5 foot 5 inches tall with long brown hair, soft brown doe eyes. During our senior year of college, we decided to live together, and after we graduated we moved to San Antonio to be closer to her family. I landed a good job with a growing IT company, and she went to work for one of the hospitals in San Antonio. We got married shortly after, and for the next 14 years we had a wonderful life together. It was last March when our happy home was shaken up. I was at a conference in Dallas when, after my company's presentation, I decided to forego the rest of the conference and come home a day early to my wife. I had decided for convenience sake to fly rather than drive. It would save several hours of driving and I wouldn't have the hassle of driving and parking in downtown Dallas. I left my car in the garage where it would be safe, so when I flew back to San Antonio, I just took a cab back home. I got there about 4:30 in the afternoon that Saturday. I knew Debbie wasn't working that day, so I was a bit surprised when I walked in and no one was home. But her car was gone, so I figured that she had gone to the store or something. No problem. I thought I would just wait for her to come home. It would be a nice surprise when she came home and I was waiting for her. I went to the refrigerator and got out a beer. I noticed that I was running low. I only had 2 beers left. At first I didn't think anything of it, but as I sat there in the living room drinking my beer and watching the news, I started thinking that I was sure I had most of a 6-pack still in the fridge when I left. And I knew Debbie wouldn't drink them. She wasn't the beer drinking type. She liked wine coolers when she drank, which wasn't that often anyway. The fact that I was so low puzzled me, but I finished my beer and tried not to worry about it too much. I'd just pick up more the next time we went to the store. I polished off my beer and went to throw the empty bottle in the trash, and that's when my world came crashing in on me. There, sitting in the kitchen trash can, was an empty box of Trojans. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I stood there staring at the evidence, hoping that my eyes were tricking me and it was just a box of something else, anything else. But as I stared at it, it didn't change. Finally I regained my wits and went into the bathroom. I looked in the trash there, and sure enough, I found a used protection in the bathroom trash can. I felt my heart jump into my throat. Who was he? Was she with him right now? Immediately, I felt a rage, and if I had any idea who she may be cheating around on me with, I would have run out the door to confirm my instinct and beat the hell out of the bastard. Had my beautiful wife of 14 years been unfaithful to me? I was almost sure of it. Emotions ran wild as I tried to stay composed. That cheating dirty woman. How dare she? I got out my last beer and sat down on the sofa to try to sort through this. I began thinking. We were just a couple horny kids back then. We had jobs now and responsibilities. And with us both working, we didn't have the time that we did back then either. And yes, I will grant you that I had been putting in a lot of hours at the office, but she worked as well. And it's not like we never did it. I thought our life was better than a lot of people that we knew. Hell, half our married friends were either divorced or headed that way. And our single friends weren't faring much better. The more I thought about it, the madder I got. I had to do something. So I devised a plan. I picked up my suitcase and stashed it deep in the closet where it wouldn't be easily seen. Then I picked up my beer bottles and tossed them in the trash can outdoors so she wouldn't see them inside. I put everything back in the house just the way I had found it, and left in a cab I had called. I went to a car rental place and picked up some old beater car, something that would blend in easily, and grabbed a bite to eat. I wanted to make sure I caught them right in the middle of the act, so I stayed away for a bit. When I thought she should be home, I drove by the house in the rental car and sure enough, I saw the house lights on. I went around the corner and parked the car where it wouldn't be seen from the house, then walked back, taking the alley behind our house. I quietly unlocked the back door and slipped inside. I made my way cautiously to the bedroom where I could see light coming from under the door. I had to be careful. The old house had a few creaks in the floor, but I knew where they were and was able to avoid them. As I got closer to the door, I could hear the distinct sound of my wife, and I couldn't believe my ears. Now in all the time Debbie and I had been together, I had never heard her talk like that. I tried to get her to talk, but she thought it was silly and considered it overacting and something only porn stars did to make their movies sell. But here she was. I listened for a couple moments until I heard her again. I busted into the room to confront them and received yet another shocker. Debbie was with another woman. "What is going on in here?" I hollered as I opened the door. Both women screamed and Debbie sat bolt upright, covering herself with the sheet. The other woman nearly fell out of bed trying to hide herself, and I stood there in the doorway with my jaw on the floor, unable to believe what I was witnessing. My wife was cheating on me, with another woman? "Robert," she screamed, "what? How? When did you get back?" "Never mind me, explain all this. What is going on, Debbie?" I demanded. I stood there for a moment looking at the two of them. Both of them had a look of sheer terror on their faces, as if I was holding a gun on them both. I didn't wait for her excuse. I turned and walked into the living room and sat on the sofa, my mind reeling from what I had seen. I was sitting there, staring at the blank screen of our TV, when Debbie came in and sat next to me. "Baby," she said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know, no, never mind. Nothing I can say will ever change what I did or make it better. But I love you, I really do. Whatever I can do to try and make it up to you, I will." "How long?" was all I said. I didn't even look at her, I just kept staring at the turned-off television. "About 6 months. It started back in August. I met Jenny at the gym and we just hit it off so well," she said. I had noticed the wonderful changes in her. I was pleased when she joined a health club and lost a few pounds. I was glad to see the new happy disposition, and to help her celebrate losing the weight, I let her go out and buy a bunch of new clothes. She looked more beautiful at age 34 than she did in college. "Jenny, huh? So is Jenny the only one?" I asked. Debbie didn't answer right away. She sat there, biting her lip until I looked at her. "Well?" I said, demanding an answer. "No. There were others," she said softly, hanging her head and looking down at her fidgeting hands. "Oh? How many others?" I asked. "Robert, I'm sorry, I never meant." She started to say. "How many?" I repeated, yelling at her and pounding my fist on the sofa arm. This startled her. I never yell at her, so when I did, it frightened her and she started to cry. Two others," she said. "And who are they?" "These other two that you cheated on me with?" I asked. "Matthew Hendricks from the gym, and Billy," she said. "Billy? Billy Donaldson, the guy I work with?" I asked. "Yeah. But he was only the one time," she said. "When was this one time?" "That time you went to the convention in Chicago. My car broke down and Billy was kind enough to come get me and bring me home. Then he took me to the store the next day so I could get some groceries," she explained. I remembered that incident, but I didn't know that her and Billy had hooked up. "I have to leave," I said, and I got up from the sofa and went into the bedroom. I took out the suitcase that I had used for my trip and stashed in the closet. I got out a smaller one and put a few things in it as well. Then I took them both into the living room. Debbie watched as I gathered my things. Where are you going to go? She asked through her tears. I don't know. All I know is that I can't be here right now, I said. I took the suitcases to my car still in the garage. After loading them up and pulling out of the garage, I went back inside once more to get my cell phone and coat. After I had them, I turned to leave. Please, Robert. Please don't leave me, she cried, throwing her arms around my neck. I was numb by then and just peeled her off me and walked out the door, leaving her sobbing. Fortunately for me, March in San Antonio is not really tourist season. Although we have tourists here year-round, the biggest influx wasn't to happen for a couple months yet, so hotel rates were low. I still wasn't ready to get an apartment, I just knew I couldn't sleep at home right then. I found a decent place, nothing too fancy, but it was clean and quiet. After I put my suitcases on the bed, I decided to go get something to eat. The next few days were awful. I went to work, and when I wasn't working, I was in my temporary home at the hotel. Neither place gave me much respite. I couldn't think about anything except Debbie and her affairs. I still hadn't decided what to do. My mind was swirling with thoughts. Should I divorce her or forgive her? After so many years together, I couldn't give her up just yet. I still loved her. Our families would be hurt if we broke up. My family had met her and loved her. And her family, living a lot closer to us, had taken me as their son. What should I do? Let me tell you, there was more than a few sleepless nights back then. My decision was made for me when after a couple weeks, I received a panicked phone call on my cell phone voicemail. I had gotten a call or two from Debbie over the past few days, both of them begging me to come home and promising me that it will never happen again. I wasn't ready at that point to come back and face her. But this phone call wasn't from Debbie, it was from her mother, Diane. Robert, I know you and Debbie are having problems right now, but she needs you. My mother, her grandmother, died a couple days ago and Debbie is in a bad way about it. She could really use you right now. That's all I'm going to say about it, was the message on my voicemail. Well, I was hurt by what Debbie had done to me, but I wasn't a heartless bastard. As soon as I got the message from her mother, I called Debbie up. Hello? She said, answering the phone. I could hear in her voice that she had been crying. It's me. Your mom called and told me what happened. I'm sorry about your grandmother, I said. Oh Robert, she broke down crying, what am I going to do? First I lose you, and now my grandmother. My world is crashing down around me, and I don't know what to do. Just stay there, I'll be right over, I told her. Okay, thank you Robert, she said. I went over to the house and I felt strange knocking on my own front door. Debbie answered the door and then stepped aside, inviting me in without words. As soon as the door closed though, she broke down, throwing her arms around my neck and sobbing uncontrollably. I held her for a few moments until she was done, and then helped her into the living room and sat her on the sofa. Do you want a drink or something? I asked her. No, but if you want I put some beer in the fridge, she said. I went and got a beer and brought her a glass of water, even though she didn't ask for it. I sat there for a bit not knowing really what to say and not wanting to be cliché, with some, it'll be all right or, at least she isn't in pain anymore, statements. You never really know what to say at moments like this, and saying the wrong thing can do more harm than good. I just held her hand and was there for her. I let her decide what she needed. Finally, after a couple minutes of uncomfortable silence, she turned to me and put her hand on top of mine. Robert, can we talk about us? She asked softly, looking down as she spoke. Yeah, I suppose we should, I said. Robert, I am so sorry about all of this. It was awful when you left me in the house alone. I cried all that night and all the next day. In fact, I've been crying ever since. Please come home. I really need you and now more than ever. Well Debbie, I would be lying if I told you I haven't thought about this too, and before I decide what to do, I have some questions I want answers to and I want the truth, I said. Of course, Robert. I don't want to lie to you. I just want us to get past this, she said. Okay, my first question, obviously, would be why did you do it? And who was the first person? I asked. The first one was Billy. I told you when that was, when you went to Chicago. As for why, I don't know. You were gone and I was lonely. Billy was very nice and we just... Her voice trailed off. That must be why he put in for a transfer to another office. He told me it was a promotion, but I found out later it was his doing. I never knew why. He must have felt so guilty that he couldn't face me anymore, so he left, I reasoned. Probably. Anyway, it was only the one time, she said. And what about this guy from the gym? Matthew something Gorather, what about him? Matthew Hendricks. Well, I've seen him a few times since I started going to the club. A few times? How many is a few times? I asked. I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe, she said. Are you sure you want to hear all this? No, I don't want to hear about any of it, but I have to if I am going to figure out how to deal with it, I said. So when was the last time you saw him? Oh, you saw those? Well, actually it's been a couple weeks since I last saw Matthew. I didn't want to get anything. Jenny is a sweet girl and a good friend, but she has other lovers as well. I see. Since when have you played for the other team anyway? I never knew you were into girls, I asked. Well, Robert, we met as juniors in college. I did have other experiences before you. And I found I liked it too. I hadn't done it with a girl, and then I met Jenny and it just kind of came natural. So I'm assuming here that you and Jenny have, more than once? I asked. Yeah, we have been together a few times, she said. Okay, so let me see if I know the score here. You were with Billy once, with Matthew 5 or 6 times, and with Jenny a few times, right? So is it safe to assume that on average, you cheated on me once a month or more often than that? I asked, trying to pin down the frequency of her indiscretions. Yeah, something like that. If you averaged them out, I suppose. There was another long, uncomfortable silence as I tried to assimilate what she had told me. This had caught me completely off guard, and I was trying to make some kind of sense out of it all. Debbie and I had a pretty good life, at least I thought we had, and even though we both worked, we still tried to make time whenever we could to enjoy each other. The idea that she had to look elsewhere for her satisfaction was strange and a little bewildering to me. I mean, she had never complained about a lack of intimacy or being unhappy. I really didn't see this one coming. Okay, so my next question then is why? Why did you feel you needed someone else? Weren't you happy with me? Was I doing something wrong? Or not doing something I should have? I asked. No, Robert, you are fine. You are great, it's just that, well, I needed something more. Something more? What the hell is that supposed to mean, Debbie? I asked. Robert, first and foremost, know that I love you, I always have and I always will. But I think I have a problem. Oh God, I feel so ashamed in admitting this. Honey, I'm so sorry but there's something you need to know about me. I am an addict, she said. A what? I said. Bullshit. I catch her in the act, and her defense is some made-up sickness. I first thought. Still, I wanted to hear what this phony addiction was. Her tone changed slightly, and it was like a different person started to speak. She sat there on the sofa sobbing into her hands. I didn't know what to do. Debbie had never lied to me before, so I had no reason to think she was lying about this now. Please forgive me, Robert. I know I'm so perverted, but I get so turned on sometimes I can't help myself. Please, I don't want to lose you. I don't want a divorce. This is just innocent lust, that's all. I don't love any of these other people. I was trying to. This was a lot to take in all of a sudden though. I mean, it was only a couple days ago I was on my way home and happy to be coming home to my wife and surprising her. But it turns out the surprise was on me. As she talked, my anger waned, replaced by excited. I really don't know why, even to this day, as she told me of her exploits. Debbie noticed the change in my demeanor, and seemed to genuinely enjoy telling me about her addiction. I was still mad, no doubt about it, but I had to ask her the nagging questions that burned inside of me. She noticed my apparent excited growing. "Do you want me to show you my new talent?" she asked, smiling sweetly. She was trying to soften me up. I was about to say something, but... Can you guess what happens next? "That was amazing, honey," she said. I was in heaven. How could things go from so bad to so good in just a few hours? Still unsettled about what to do, we went to sleep still in EAC.